So what am I looking for? On the next page, page 43, page 44, and page 45, there's really only a handful of types of houses that are coming after me. The first one is the payments are current and it's in good condition. That is actually going to be most of the houses that you call FSBOs on. It's current or it's in good condition. If you look over the next page, it's good condition and the payments are in arrears. So either the payment, if it's in good condition, the payments are either in arrears or current, one of the two. And we'll discuss our options based on that. And then on the next page, the payments are current, but it's in poor condition, or the payments are in arrears and it's in poor condition. Okay, what else is there? That's it. All right. So on page 43, here are our options. Now, let's start with good condition and current. If it comes at me, it's either going to have some equity, a lot of equity but a debt, or free and clear, or no equity. So it's going to have a little equity, a lot of equity plus a debt, free and clear, or it's going to be overfinanced. Got to be one of those four. If it has it's got to be one of those four. Okay, so now the key is figure out, well, all right, what do I do with it? And your answers, your options are right there. If it is has a little bit of equity, you have a choice. I can either take it subject to, or possibly buy it with owner financing, depending on where I live, whether I'd want to do that or not, or lease purchase it. What's the one you're going to do the most? Okay, I will tell you that if it has a small amount of equity, you're probably going to lease purchase it. Are you keeping up with me there? If it has a small amount of, well, you're probably going to lease purchase it unless you live in Texas. Remember, in Texas, it's the non-refundable deposits that I'm collecting that give them heartburn, not the fact really that I'm lease purchasing it. But if I lease purchase it from a seller, I can't sell it on an all-inclusive trust deed because I don't own it. So it doesn't do me any good to lease purchase a house in Texas, even if I don't give them a deposit. Plus, I'm not sure how much of the law kicks in just because I lease purchased it. I don't mess with it. In Texas, lease purchases are out. So if it has a little bit of equity, all I really got to do is ask myself, okay, are the payments low enough to where I know I could put somebody in it and collect that or more in the marketplace? Is the house is in good condition? Seller's asking for no money. So are the payments low enough to where I know that I could cover them? And here's where your decisions come in. If the payments are really low, you might want to stay in it and lease it and then sublease it. If the payments are market or about, then you decide, okay, I'll just axe it. And you get to decide. Some of you will decide to axe everything because you just don't want to stay in it. And I don't really care. Whatever your decision is the right decision. Even though you might get a monthly spread in it, you'd rather not be bothered with it. You'd rather get your check and run. Your choice. Some of you will work harder and harder to stay in it, which is also your choice because you feel you're going to get some monthly spread. And of course, either way, you're going to get a big chunk of cash from the non-refundable deposit from your tenant buyer. Okay, if it has a lot of equity, but still has a mortgage on it, you can either take it over subject to and figure out how to pay the seller the difference between what you agree upon buying it for and the loan balance. And I can tell you that when I do that, I only make them one offer. I'll take over your debt and I'll give you a second mortgage on the house with no payments and no interest for some term off into the future. $200,000 house, $140,000 debt. Seller will not give away the 60 grand, but they will sell it for, say, 170. I'll take over your 140. I'll buy your house. I'll take over your loan. I'll give you back a second for 30. No payments, no interest, 5-year balloon. Now when I sell the property and cash out of it, you'll have to collect your 30 and your 140 will be paid off. In the meantime, I make payments on the 140. That's the offer, if you choose to offer that. If you want to own the property, you offer that. If you don't care, you could offer a $170,000 lease purchase just as easy. In fact, easier, couldn't you? Is it easier for you to explain a lease purchase than this taking over the debt subjects to tough and giving them back a second? What do you think? All right. Do you accomplish the same either way? Well, the answer is yes and no. You control the house either way. You have the same amount of equity either way. But, guys, there are going to come times when you want to own the house rather than lease purchase it. What's the downside of lease purchasing? Well, there's a couple actually. Number one, when I lease purchase a house, I cannot depreciate it. There's no tax benefit there. I can write off my rent and I can claim my rent coming in. It's kind of a wash or whatever, but I don't have any depreciation. Number two, when I lease purchase the property, the deed's still in the seller's name. And that means when I get ready to cash out of this property, I've got to deal with that seller. And I may not like that. If I can get around that, I might take it subject to. If I take it subject to, the seller deeds me the property, and if I owe them a second mortgage, I can give them back a second mortgage, my LLC does, or my land trust does, and I will never need to see them again. I don't have to chase them down to get the deed. I've already got the deed. If I lease option it from them, though, you've got two choices. You can either hope that you don't have a problem getting the deed when it's time to pay them off, or you can force them to put the deed in escrow with your attorney with instructions to record the deed when their loan is paid off. However, that does not come without a caveat. And you should know this. If you get a deed from a seller and then they die, that deed is worthless. That deed is worthless. If the deed is not recorded before they die, you're going to have to go get the deed from their heirs now to be able to transfer title. So, what that means is, you want to lease option properties, you better hope your sellers stay alive. Now, I would much prefer that you get a deed, signed then, put in your attorney's escrow account so that you have it regardless. Doesn't cost any more to get it than not get it. The attorney is not recording the deed. The attorney prepares an escrow agreement that the seller signs that says, when the loan is paid off, you have my permission to record this deed. Now that may or may not fly. You're going to have to ask your attorney. Because if a deed is prepared 5 years ago, you may not have a good title recording it 5 years later. Have a conversation with your attorney about what he or she thinks you ought to do to ensure that you get title without any problems later. And if not, don't worry about it. Don't lay awake at night worrying about, what if the seller backs out on me? You know, what if a plane comes out of the sky and hits me in the head? You know, what if? Okay, do I have a contract with my seller? Is my seller legally liable for any stupid stuff they do? And do I have full rights to sue them, get damages, and all the stuff that comes with my agreement? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Could something go wrong? Yes, it could. Will it go wrong? Probably for you it will. So here's the reality of it. You're either going to go through your business life preparing the best you can for things that are going to go wrong and then handle them when they do, or not do anything so you can always be safe. And those are your two choices. And that, my friends, is why most people are employees, not employers. They'd rather be safe than rich. Well, you ain't going to get both. There's always something that can go wrong. I do not worry about getting the deed when it comes time, because I know what I can do to the seller if they don't come forth with the deed. I do not worry about buyers or sellers keeping their promises, because if they don't, I have got the documentation in place to enforce my rights. All right, so back to the point. When you got a chance to get some free equity, you're going to have to decide, do I want to own it, or I'm okay with lease optioning it. Now, of course, it's not all your decision. The seller's got to agree with your decision. Seller may not want to deed it to you, where they might lease it to you. Seller may not want to lease it to you. They'd rather sell it to you. So the seller has a lot of input on that, and you're going to follow the seller's lead. Now look at it from your point of view. It depends on what state you're in. No matter what state you're in, when the deed transfers, somebody's paying closing cost. In some states, that is onerous. Large amount of money, like Maryland comes to my mind, 3% of the sales price just for transfer tax. So if I got a $200,000 loan on a house, my goodness gracious, there goes $6,000 just to transfer ownership plus the other cost. Guess what? I live in Maryland, we're lease optioning, because I'm not paying $6,000 to transfer that ownership. We're lease optioning. Okay, let's move down south and let's come to Georgia. You know, transfer tax, a case of Budweiser. I mean, almost none. So if my closing costs are horrendous wherever I live, I'm probably going to be prone to doing lease purchases more, and I'm not willing to pay the price to get the deed. If my closing costs are small where I live, I'm probably going to be working harder to get the deed, so I have total control of the property and depreciation. Are we clear? Clear. All right, good. Okay, and now if we have no equity, the house is financed 95, 100% or more, what is your path, most likely? It's probably ACTS, A-C-T-S. Again, however, I would caution you, though, do not let it get away until you at least ask yourself, is this one I probably should maintain control of because I can get some nice monthly cash flow out of? And what will determine that in your mind? The answer is the difference you think you can achieve between the rent coming in and the rent going out. If it's enough to make you interested in staying, you stay. If it's not, you don't stay. That's simple. I would caution you, though, that when you're putting lease option tenant buyers in houses, we tend to get much more per month than when we're just renting houses. Especially with my down payment assistance program. And when I know people will pay more on a lease purchase than they will on a straight rent, I kind of like to take that in consideration when I'm trying to figure out what the market will pay. So if I think the market will pay $1,200 a month, in my mind, I might be able to get $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 a month out of this house. So that might influence my decision. Okay, payments and arrears are in good condition. If it has some equity, I might be willing to take it over like it is, subject to, and make the payments up when I get my tenant buyer in the building, or I might not. Depends on what I think the math looks like. If it's in arrears and in good condition, I might be able to lease purchase it and then make the payments up again when I get my lease option deposit. Remember, though, the farther it's behind, the less money that's going in my pocket. So when somebody comes to me and they're a year behind on their payments, is a lease purchased immediately out of the picture? Yes. Yes. Is taking it over subject to immediately out of the picture? No. It depends on how much equity is in it. If I've got a $200,000 house and a $120,000 loan, and I've got a $900 a month payment, and it's a year behind, who says we buy it? We buy it. We buy it. We don't let $80,000 worth of equity go by just because they're a year behind. On the other hand, if I lease purchase it, well, I might choose to lease purchase it too. In that case, sacrifice my front end profit to get to the back end equity. But I'd rather buy it. And I'll tell you what I don't like about lease purchasing that property. If they're a year behind and I lease purchase it from them, are we going to probably be a year behind again in the near future? I don't know. I can tell you if I did lease purchase that property, I would insist that I make the payment directly to the bank, so it might not be an issue. If you guys want to just simplify this, you can forget about taking it subject to and just ask yourself, okay, should I lease purchase it or not? And then gradually working your way into deciding when you want to actually buy it. All right, if it's in arrears and it's got no equity, it's probably dead. It's probably dead. If it's in arrears and it's got a lot of equity, it's probably a hot one. And you got to decide what's your planned exit strategy.